Welcome back to Planet Doug behind the scenes for Wednesday, August 16th, 2023. It's about 7 o'clock in the morning and I'm still in the city of Padang in West Sumatra. It's a city right on the ocean, right on the coast. And I came here because I had to I had to get an extension for my 30-day tourist visa. I got a visa on arrival at the airport here in Padang, and in Indonesia you only get 30 days for your initial visa, and that expired on, when did it expire? Tuesday, I guess, yesterday, or Monday or Tuesday, that visa expired. And the previous week, like 7 days ago, I started the process of applying for a 30-day extension. And that, as I've explained in the past, is a three-step process. You go in to apply, a few days later you go back to have your fingerprints and your photo taken, and then a few days after that you finally go back and pick up your passport. And the final day, day number 7, was yesterday. So the first thing I did in the morning was hop on my scooter and ride the 8 or 9 kilometers to the immigration office here in Padang. That's always an interesting experience. I mean, bureaucracies worldwide have quirks, and I always love seeing these quirks in action and puzzling over them. And I think the immigration system, the tourist visa system in Indonesia, has more than its fair share of quirks. I don't know where they come from, where the original visa processing system originated, who designed it, what its purpose is. It's a little bit complicated and a little bit unwieldy overall. Anyway, some weird things happen. And one thing that happens, which kind of puzzles me a lot, is that you don't get any kind of a receipt. So you go to the immigration office and you fill out all the paperwork, give them your passport, they keep it for 7 days. You go to a bank, pay the 500,000 rupiah, you get a receipt for that, you give that receipt to the immigration office, and then you walk away and you go out the front door, or the side door in most cases, you go out the side door with nothing. You have no proof that anything has taken place. Other countries I've been to, it's equally problematic because immigration has to keep your passport during the processing period. And if you don't organize your life properly, you find yourself, oh shoot, I have to go to the bank and change money, or I have to do this or do that, and I need my passport. But during that period of time, you don't have your passport because immigration keeps it. So you have to plan in advance to make sure that you're okay living without your passport for, up to a week or however long the process is. But most of the time, you at least get a little piece of paper, a receipt from the immigration office that has your name and your passport number on it, and they tell you that, if the police, for example, stop you and ask to see your passport, you can show them this, and that shows them that you do have a valid passport, but it is being held by immigration, and you have a piece of paper to show that. But in Indonesia, they don't give you anything. So you're basically walking around with nothing. And when you go back to the immigration office to finally pick up your passport, you definitely have a feeling of doom hanging over your head, because what if it's missing? They can't find it. You have nothing to even show that you ever went to the office or that you ever had a passport. Like, you have no starting point. So that's the way it was when I went there yesterday. And then I went up to the window and I thought maybe they get so few foreigners there doing anything that they would just remember me. I thought they would just look up and go, oh, he's here to pick up his passport. Because every time I've gone to this office, it's been completely empty. I'd be surprised if they got 2 people a day coming there to do anything. I could be absolutely wrong about that, because I tend to do things first thing in the morning. Maybe later in the afternoon, there's a flood of foreigners who come in to renew or extend their tourist visa. I don't know. But it doesn't seem like a very busy place, and I thought they would remember me, but I went up to the window, and there's only one guy sitting in a chair behind the window, and I said to him in English, you know, I'm here to pick up my passport. And then he sort of gave me that blank look, like, what? Huh? Who? What? You know, it was like, oh boy, here we go. And he got a blank piece of paper, like 8.5 by 11-inch paper from a like a photocopier machine paper, you know, just a blank piece of paper, and handed it to me and said, well, could you write down your name? So I wrote down my name in full and gave it to him, and he took that piece of paper and then he just went back into the office, and I could hear all this commotion back there as he went from desk to desk to desk. Like, have you heard of this guy? Anybody know why he's here? You know this name? He said something about a passport, you know, who knows what was going on. But I've had that experience at every immigration office in Indonesia where it takes 7 to 10 days to process my visa extension application. So they've got the whole 7 to 10 days to do something, and then they tell you to come back and pick it up on this day. So I go back on that day, and yet every time that I've shown up on the specified day, it's like it comes as a huge surprise to them. It's like, oh, yeah. Oh, we forgot it. You know, it's almost like nothing has happened for that entire 7-day period. And my showing up is like, oh, yeah, that visa extension. Because the last time I did it in Bukit Tinggi, it was clear that even though there was an official pickup day, my passport still hadn't been stamped. Nothing had taken place in all those days. My package had just been sitting on the officer's desk the whole time. And when I showed up in the morning to get my completed passport, they told me, we haven't done it yet, and the man who does it, he isn't here. Like, he hasn't come into work yet. So, you know, you sit down and wait. So I had to wait, I don't know, an hour, hour and a half, until this guy showed up at work. And then he sat down and went over my folder, went over all my papers, and stamped it and signed it, and I got the extension. So they waited until I showed up on the pickup day to even start the process. So I don't know why they had to keep it there for so many days, but that's just how it works. And in this case, in this office, the same sort of commotion happened where nobody seemed to know anything about me or my passport. And I was thinking, oh, yeah, this could be interesting. And then a woman came out holding that piece of paper with my name on it. And she says, oh, were you here yesterday? I guess they had a foreigner who came in yesterday and there was something unusual about him. Maybe he had to come back and there was something wrong or something. She says, were you here yesterday? And I says, no, that wasn't me. That would have been someone else. I came in here, last week. And she says, oh, okay. And then she goes back into the room and there's all this stuff. And while all this commotion was going on, I got a notification on my phone, and it went ding, and I look and I get an email from immigration that says, oh, your application for a residency permit has been approved. It said all that in Indonesian, but I did a Google Translate on it. And while I was there and all that commotion was taking place, it seemed to have kick-started the process, and somebody hit a button on a computer and it sent out the approval notification. And then a few minutes later, they came out with my passport, and it had the right stamp in it, and I got a 30-day extension, and I just had to sign a little booklet to, acknowledge that I'd gotten my passport back, and that was the end of it. Yeah, even the little booklet that I signed had nothing on there. Like, it was not an official thing. It was like an old tall ledger that you would get from a stationery store, like any bookkeeper would pick it up, or student or whatever, and it just had my name written in full on the left, handwritten, and then I just had to sign on the right. But no, passport number visa extension application reference number, like nothing at all. It was just like a handwritten. So it was an odd system of like official emails being sent to me, giving me notifications, combined with a very old-fashioned sort of sign for your passport system. But yeah, it's always fun to see all these quirks in action and wonder about them. But all's well that ends well, and I got my visa extension. Took me 7 days to do it, but I didn't really mind that because I've been enjoying my time here in Padang. I just extended my stay at this hotel for another 4 nights. I've been here, I think, 8 nights already, because I had to be here for the whole week in order to do this. So I had 8 nights booked in this hotel, and I've got my passport back, but I've still got things I want to do here. So I extended my reservation here for another 4 nights. So I had no problem hanging out here for a week. I really enjoyed it. Coffee time. Coffee's ready. Funny thing is, my kettle, I bought a kettle, very inexpensive kettle when I first came to Sumatra now a long time ago. And it's more and more it's starting to fall apart. It has one of these thin aluminum bodies and aluminum lid. And when you first buy it, the lid doesn't have a handle on it. There's no little knob. You get a knob and a screw in a little plastic bag, and then you've got to put the knob on and screw it into place. And the screw is metal, and it screws into a plastic knob. And I guess it's just worn out. So now whenever I put the lid on the kettle, and I grab the little knob on the top to pull the lid off. And instead of pulling the lid off, it like pulls the screw right out of the plastic knob, and then I can hear the bolt and the screw and the washer blink, 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 fall into the water. And it's like, and now the lid is stuck in place, and I have to get a tool to kind of get into the little hole and pop the lid off. And now I have to be very careful to pour the water out, without getting nuts and bolts and washers in my coffee. I feel like I should say that when I tell these stories about like going to immigration, I'm not doing it in a sense of being critical. I have a lifelong interest in systems, logistics, and organization and bureaucracy. I don't know why, I just always have. I just like to see how places are or are not organized. So that's why I end up talking about it quite a bit. It just interests me. The people here at the immigration office in Padang were wonderful, really nice people, really friendly, like bending over backwards to help me out and be nice to me when I was there, friendly, big smiles. And I can guarantee you that any Indonesian who goes to Canada and then tries to go to a government office to extend a tourist visa, they are not going to be treated the way I was treated here. I mean, I was treated as an honored guest. They took such good care of me and were so friendly and warm and personal. So like absolutely no complaints about going to this office at all. And as I said, I can tell you the reverse would not be true. If you go into a government office in Canada, nobody is going to be as nice to you there as people are, to me here. I just find all these details amusing and watching the process unfold. And if they had told me yesterday, it's like, oh, your passport isn't ready, you have to come back tomorrow, I would have been, oh, okay, that's fine. I would have sailed out the door happy as can be. I had my scooter, I had sunny weather, I was in Padang, a very beautiful city as it turns out. I would have been more than happy to just zoom off and enjoy my day, and I'll go back tomorrow morning or like this morning. I would have been perfectly fine with it. So yeah. Yeah, even the parking area there, I mean, it's pretty crazy. It's an older building. I think it's outgrown itself, that the building isn't big enough for the amount of traffic it gets, and the parking area is like probably a fifth of the size it needs to be. It cannot handle the volume of traffic, people trying to park their cars and motorcycles there. So they have a team of like 5 or 6 eager young men in the parking area, just working like crazy, helping people park their vehicles and make room for them. And then people are instructed, I think, based on what I saw yesterday, they're instructed to leave their cars in neutral and leave the doors unlocked, because these guys, while people were inside the immigration office, they were out there pushing the cars around, because they had to put all the cars in the parking spots, but then they also had to put cars lined up across them. So everybody was blocked in. Nobody can get their cars out. And if somebody comes out and it's like, oh, my car's blocked in, these guys hop into action, and they're like, it's like one of those games, those video games where you have to make room for things, and they would be like pushing cars physically back and forth across the parking lot to move them out of the way so someone can get their car out. Then they take this car and push it into that spot. And I mean, it's just amazing the amount of personal work and service you get from all these people. Yeah, it's quite a thing to go there. I was just thinking this morning that I'm running into a little bit of a problem with these behind the scenes videos, and I think I have to change my system. The original idea was to shoot a kind of daily journal, but also a behind the scenes video for the main videos that I post to Planet Doug. So for example, I want to, like, I go out and have an experience. When I was in Bukittinggi still, I went to a place called Lake Maninjau on my scooter, and I shot a video about that day. It was a day trip going to this amazing crater lake called Lake Maninjau. So I shot that video, and then the next morning I told the story, the behind the scenes story of going to Lake Maninjau and shooting that video. And the idea is to post the main video first, and then the next day post the behind the scenes video, so that you see the actual video on Planet Doug, and then the companion video comes out later. But that's turning into a bit of a problem, because the main video takes so long to edit, and I've been so busy lately that I just have not had any time. So that Lake Maninjau video, I still haven't finished editing it. It'll probably take me another 2 days to finish it. Meanwhile, I've been shooting a lot of behind the scenes videos. So I've been waiting to post the behind the scenes video until I finally finish the Maninjau video. But if I keep doing that, I'm going to end up waiting forever. So I think I'm just going to have to post behind the scenes videos whenever they're done. Like I'll shoot one today, post it today. And then if it comes out before the main video, well, that's just what's going to happen. So that's assuming I keep going with behind the scenes videos, or even Planet Doug videos. You know, that's always hanging in the balance, because it takes over your life to an extent, not always in a good way. But after I got my passport back, I rode my scooter back to my hostel here, and on the way I stopped off to get Boober Ayam for breakfast. There's a little place just up the street, very near here, and so I stopped there for breakfast, and the plan was to ride my scooter down the coast a little bit. I didn't have a specific destination in mind. I've been looking at Google Maps a lot, you know, looking up and down the coast and the mountains and the islands, looking at the names of the beaches and thinking there might be like a big tourist attraction down there somewhere, and I can use that as my destination. But I didn't really come up with anything. So I figured for the day I would just go out and just see what there is over there. Just get on the scooter, ride down the coast out of Padang, and then just ride and see what I come across, basically. And I would normally do that starting very early in the morning. I'd like to leave as early as possible when the sun is still low in the sky, and yeah, it's just more comfortable, cooler, perhaps less traffic and things like that. But because I had to go to immigration first, and then I had breakfast, then I came back here, I had my immigration shirt on and long pants, you have to dress up as best you can to go to immigration, of course. You can't just show up there in flip-flops and surfing shorts and a tank top. They even have a big sign at the door, you know, showing you exactly what clothing is acceptable, what isn't. So anyway, I had to change clothes before I could head out for the day, and I had to come back here, get all my GoPros ready and get all my gear ready to get on the scooter. And by the time I was on the road, it was after 10 o'clock. And in my mind, I don't know, I hate that, because you step outside at 10 o'clock and the sun is there. I mean, the sun is like high in the sky. It feels like the day is already over. It's like, what's the point? If you're leaving at 10 in the morning, to me, it feels like the day is practically over already. The best part of the day is already done. So leaving at 10, I figure there's no point. But I thought, you know, be like a normal person for a change, Doug. 10 o'clock is not that late. Just go. Yeah. So I went, and I didn't have any gas in the tank, and I thought I would come across a gas station along the way. As it turned out, I didn't. But of course, that's not a problem here. I rode for quite a long time, had a bunch of experiences, and I still hadn't come across a gas station. But at the side of the road, they always have the sellers. They buy gas in big, I don't know how they do it, but I guess they buy it in big tubs or some big containers, and they bring it back to their house or back to their shop, and they fill up water bottles, like just plastic, clear water bottles, like the 1.5 liter bottles. And they fill some of them up to the top. So each bottle holds 1.5 liters, and they fill some of them partway up. And those are 1 liter bottles. And they just have them at the side of the road, like a big display of them. Some of them bottles are blue or green. I think that's Pertalite. And then there's blue, which is a slightly higher grade of gasoline, a bit more expensive, Permamax or something. And then occasionally you'll see red, I think. And red is the high-end fuel for like more, like bigger engines, like big motorcycles and things. I was told when I rented the scooter that I should get green, Pertalite, the cheapest, and that's what's suitable for my scooter. And when I went to, well, I was running out of gas basically, and then I saw at the side of the road, a big display. It was like exactly when I needed it. There it was. But I didn't know how much to put in my tank. The tank was almost empty, but I didn't know how much the tank held. Honestly, I had no idea. And I thought, if you asked me, how much does this gas tank hold? I mean, I would have said, I don't know, 10, 20 liters, 15 liters, 30 liters. Like, I don't know, like gas tanks hold a lot, right? I would have said a number like that. But with the woman there, this gas thing at the side of the road, I just asked for 2 of the bottles, like 1.5 liters each. And I thought, well, let's just start with 2 and see what happens. So I said, dua, 3, that'll be a total of 3 liters. And had I been thinking more clearly, I would have realized that no, my tank does not hold 20 liters. I knew this because I could calculate based on the cost of the gasoline. But for whatever reason, I didn't think of that. So I just said, 3 liters. And then the woman put a big funnel on my into my gas tank. And then she took the first 1.5 liters, but she poured it in really slowly. She didn't just like pour it in. At least I didn't think she did. She definitely didn't for the second one. I have this whole thing on video, so I can go back and check the tape. But my memory is even for the first bottle, she put it in slowly because I think she's used to gas tanks overflowing. It's not like a pump that has an automatic, it doesn't automatically turn itself off when the tank is full. If you keep pouring and the tank fills up, it's going to overflow and gas is going to go everywhere. So I think she was pouring it in carefully, and the first 1.5 liters went in, and then she took the second bottle, and it was really hard to get the entire 3 liters in there. She poured it in really slowly, and then the tank seemed to be filling right to the top, and then she had to keep pouring a little bit, and a little bit, and a little bit, and a little bit, and kind of letting the gas settle each time. And eventually all 3 liters fit, but the tank was full right to the top, which really surprised me at the time. I thought, oh, only 3 liters. At least now I know, right? And it was she charged me 12,000 rupiah per liter. And I think if you go to a gas station, Pertalite is 10,000. So when you get it at the side of the road, you're paying a 20% premium. You're paying 12,000 instead of 10. And that 2,000 is their profit, right, for providing this service. Yeah, that was a lot of fun. That was the first time that I've done it here in Indonesia. All the gas I've gotten so far, I've always gone to gas stations. So this is the first time I got gas at the side of the road. So yeah, I really enjoyed that. Just the little things. I think that's what I enjoyed most about being overseas, being in a place like this. All the small daily routines. Everything is just interesting to do when you do something new. So I had a full tank of gas. And at that time, I was trying to go to a harbor. Like, to get to where I was, I'd already ridden through some really interesting things, but I'd already been in the first area. Like, I went out on a day trip the other day, and I explored all up and down the river, crossed all the bridges, went up into the park on the hill, went to a big beach on the other side. I went to the lookout point, all these restaurants along this cliff, and all of that, and the main harbor, Teluk Bayur, I think, this big industrial petrochemical shipping harbor. I'd already ridden through all of that. So the first part of my day was a lot of fun because I'd ridden in this area a lot already, and I pretty much knew exactly where to go. I didn't have to consult Google Maps. I didn't have to stop. I didn't have to think. I could just zoom down this road, do a U-turn, another U-turn, go across the bridge, go around the ramp, go up and over the hill, down this way, along the coast, through the shipping harbor. I knew exactly where to go. And you just sit back and ride your scooter. That was a lot of fun. And then once I got on the other side of the petrochemical shipping harbor, then I was in new territory. From that point on, everything was new to me. And I was partially interested in doing this because I've now got 30 days on my new visa extension, and I was thinking about riding all the way down the coast to a city called Bengkulu as, a small adventure, just to go off on a scooter journey to Bengkulu and then ride it all the way back. And then I'd have to go, of course, back to Bukit Tinggi because my bicycle is still there, get my bicycle, and then continue on from there back to Malaysia. So I was thinking about, is this a good idea or not to ride my scooter all the way down the coast? It's about 600 kilometers to Bengkulu, and then it would be another 600 or 700 kilometers coming back. So you're talking about just a driving journey of maybe 1,300 kilometers. And that's no small feat on a scooter. That's a long distance. And so I was kind of wondering, okay, would it be worth it to do this? And that's kind of what was on the back of my mind yesterday. Ride down the coast a little bit and see how it feels. And, do I want to go all the way to Bengkulu? Is it worth the effort? And overall, to be honest, I kind of have to say no. It struck me by the end of yesterday that riding all the way to Bengkulu down the coast road is not such a great idea. I mean, it would be fun. It wouldn't be awful, but it is a highway. It's the West Sumatran Highway. And the section that I rode along was busy. Like, it's a small road, small 2-lane road with really no shoulder of any kind. And if you're riding on the extreme left side of the road, it's very bumpy, like just bumpy, potholes, gouges in the road, just hills and potholes and bumps and winding and very tight and steep up and down. I don't know if it's like that all the way to Bengkulu, but there were also so many trucks, just endless, big, beastie trucks, just thundering by all the time. And they, of course, block traffic because they're moving slowly for the most part. So everybody gets stuck behind these trucks. Everybody's trying to pass them, passing on blind curves. It's just chaos the entire time. And you really have to be on your toes on your scooter. You got to watch carefully what's coming up behind you, what's in front of you, the road around the corner. And there's really no good way to ride. I mean, you can ride at high speed, which means you can stay in the middle of the road, which is smoother, not as many potholes. And then, of course, you have to be passing everything you're coming across, and you're being speed racer the whole time. But that's not a whole lot of fun to me, because I'm out there to see the scenery. The whole point is to see the place. So if I'm just like going as fast as I can, all I'm doing is driving. But then the alternative is to go slowly so you can look around and take in your environment. But then you have to hug the side of the road to let other people pass you. And then you're in this really bumpy, dangerous part of the road, and that's not a whole lot of fun either. I mean, it was who knows how I should describe this. I mean, it was fun. It was a great day, and I really enjoyed riding the scooter. But at the same time, I don't know that it would be wise or worthwhile to do that for 600 kilometers all the way to Bengkulu, when there's a ton of places to visit right around here. I mean, why? I've talked about this in the past. We have this human instinct to go far away. It's like we're sitting here maybe on the shore, and there's an island right offshore that we could go visit. But for some reason, instead of going to that island, we hire a boat to take us to the island that's 6 days away by boat. Because it's farther away, it seems more valuable. So I can go all the way down the coast, 600 kilometers to Bengkulu, but at the same time, I've got all this coastline all around Padang, where I am right now, right? There's all kinds of towns and villages and places I can visit in this whole area. And would going to Bengkulu be any better than staying in Padang, you know? I mean, anyway, as humans, I want to go to Bengkulu, because you look at the map and it's like, oh, I want to go there. But who knows? It might be a very uncomfortable, 600 kilometers to get there, and 600 kilometers to come back. So you spend all the money on gas and this, that, and the other thing. And maybe by the end of it, there was nothing you saw on the way that you couldn't see right where you are. Anyway, the heavy, heavy traffic made me think, maybe going to Bengkulu is not the best use of my time. It may not be the best thing to do. Anyway, so as I said, I got through the shipping harbor, and from that point on, everything was new. And it really was interesting. I saw, like, just at the side of the road, the shops, the people, so many like cafes and restaurants, because it is a beautiful area, all kinds of scenic lookout points, beaches. But one thing I did see was some kind of a fishing harbor, I thought, a port of some kind. And that's kind of what I set my eye on. I wanted to somehow get off the highway and go down through the small streets and get to the edge of the water. And I was hoping there would be a bunch of fishing boats and things like that, because those are always really interesting to see. So that was kind of what I had my eye on. That was my initial destination, was to get to this little fishing harbor. I eventually found this harbor, and it was a really interesting experience. I enjoyed that a lot. I started off by getting a cup of coffee. There's a bunch of men sitting underneath some trees. And at the beginning, I didn't really see what they were doing, but they were sort of sitting in a circle, and they appeared to be playing some kind of a game. My brain made that connection. It's like, oh, these guys are playing a game. There's a lot of shouting and laughing, and And that's where my brain went, but I never actually looked to see what game it was. I thought it'd be some sort of a local board game, something. So I didn't really notice the game at first, but there was a motorcycle there with kind of a coffee shop built on the back of it, you know. So he had a little homemade box with thermoses of hot water and then all these packages of coffee and sweetened condensed milk and things like that. So one of the guys, you know, involved in the games was the coffee guy. And then when I made it clear I was interested in buying a coffee, he came over and he made me a kopi susu out of one of these 3-in-1 cappuccino packages. And he filled the bottom of this plastic cup with condensed sweetened milk. And then he put in the cappuccino mix, and then he poured in hot water. And it was kind of funny because he packaged it like it was a cold drink. It was a hot coffee, but he put it into a clear plastic cup with a lid and a straw. So I was like, okay, that's kind of weird. It's like, not sure why, because the plastic was so thin, you really couldn't hold on to it, because to my delight, the water was really hot. Even though it was just sitting in a thermos, it was quite hot. It was quite hot, and I like my coffee to be as hot as possible. But yeah, it was just kind of funny that I'm sitting there, and I did drink it with the straw. I thought, okay, he gave it to me with a straw, and so I was like holding the cup kind of very carefully because it was so hot, and little sips of this burning hot coffee coming up the straw. Anyway, that was kind of cool. And while I was there, one of the guys came over. Actually, I had a couple of funny experiences there. I couldn't keep track of them all, but different men would sit down beside me or come up to me and chat with me, you know, where are you from, and ask me the usual questions. And they saw that I had the GoPros. I had a GoPro on my chest harness and one on a mount. And one of the guys, he actually took the GoPro I had on a selfie stick as a joke, and I actually hit record on the GoPro because I figured I might as well record this. And then he was holding it, and then he was pretending to be vlogging. I guess he'd seen vloggers like me all the time, and it's a very familiar sight in Indonesia apparently. And then this guy, he just kind of held onto my GoPro, and then he mimed, you know, like he was talking into the camera, and then I have all of that on video. I hope I've copied the video, but I haven't checked any of it yet, so I haven't seen what that looks like. But that was kind of funny. And then these guys talking to me, they used YouTuber language, which I thought was really fascinating, because people in Indonesia really are familiar with YouTube. So these guys, they're fishermen. All of them were fishermen. They work on these fishing boats. This is what they do for a living. You know, and you know, they don't work in offices, they don't work on computers, they're not involved in that world. And yet when they're talking to me, they said things like, oh, you're a content creator, you're a YouTuber, you're a content. They knew the phrase content creator in English. And then they started trying to talk me into chartering a boat. So I guess I learned more and more about this during the day, but I guess there are islands. I don't think they're the Mentawai Islands, because to go to the Mentawai Islands, that's a journey. You've got to get on a big boat to go out there. But I guess there are smaller offshore islands, and people go there for day trips to hang out on the island and swim in the beach or whatever it is you do on these islands. And people kept offering to take me out to these islands. And these guys were doing the same. They all said, okay, you know, we are fishermen, this is my boss, it's his boat. And then they told me, you know, we can take you out to these islands. And they kept telling me it's really good content. Like if you rent our boat and we go out to one of the islands, it's good content for you, you know, for your YouTube channel, really good content. It was really amazing that they knew that word. Yeah, they knew more about YouTube than I do. They knew what makes good content. Me, I think eating boober I am for breakfast and putting gas in the tank. For me, that's good content. And but for these guys, they know, no, good content. You've got to go to a tropical island and you've got to get on a boat and you've got to go swimming and snorkeling. That's good content. That's what the tourists do. So, and as I talked about yesterday in the video itself, one problem I have, because I have these encounters in every country that I visit, is that the people trying to sell you things never offer you any information about the thing they're trying to sell you. So these guys, for example, they were just saying, go by boat? You want to go by boat out to the island? And I basically say no, because I can't afford it, I'm sure. And I'm just one person. And normally you do these sorts of things with a group of people. You get 5-10 people together, you charter a boat and off you go for the day. For one person to do it, obviously it's going to be very expensive. So my gut instinct is just to say, no, thank you, no, thank you, no, thank you. I got offered boat trips all day long. Everywhere I went, I was on the scooter turning at an intersection, and a man across the road is like, hey, shouting at me and waving his hand and telling me to stop. He wants to talk to me. I had no idea who he was or what he wanted. He runs across traffic, comes over to me, gets out his phone, and on Google Translate, he seemed to be writing a novel. He was like tapping for a long time. And then he showed it to me in English, and it said, there are plans for visiting the islands. He was basically offering me, do you want to go on a boat tour to the islands? And then I did go to this beach, and I'm walking around there, and then I'll talk about that in a minute. And all these men on the beach, they kept running after me over and over, and they would pull out these laminated pieces of paper with photos of islands on them and saying, oh, you want to go out to the islands? So I guess that's one of the things you do here as a visitor. And everybody was saying to me, do you want to go to these islands? Even these fishermen who I was drinking coffee with. But I need information. I mean, if you really want to talk me into this, well, let's get some details here. Like, if he says, go to an island, my instinct is, no. But if he said, listen, we have a boat, it goes to this island, and this island, and this island, we can go for 2 hours if you want, or 4 hours, or 6 hours. We can go to this many places. It will cost this much. We leave at this time in the morning and we come back at this time in the afternoon, and the price includes lunch. Okay, I'm all ears now. Talk to me, give me information, woo me, talk me into it. So I don't know, just sort of saying, you want to boat out to the island? It's that's not enough. I need, get on Google Translate and say, okay, it's, 1 day trip. We go to 3 islands and we go snorkeling. We provide lunch, and it costs 1.5 million rupiah, whatever it is. Just give me that, and who knows? I might say yes. But somehow the whole getting into the discussion and I don't know, it gets very complicated when you try to set these things up. And of course, I'm not that interested. What am I going to do? Oddly enough, with all these fishermen there, when they first started talking about the boats and content, good content for this content creator, I thought they were saying I could go with them while they're fishing, and that would interest me. At first, I thought they were saying, listen, we're taking the boat out. We're going to go catch some tuna. Do you want to come with us? Then, okay, now I'm interested. If I could go out with these guys, I assume they go fishing at night. Everything seems to be night fishing. And they says, oh, we're going out on the boat fishing tonight. Do you want to come with us and see us doing our work, what we do to make a living? Yes, absolutely, I want to do that. But hiring a boat on a pleasure cruise so I can sit on a beach somewhere and, I don't know, What am I going to do there? No, I'm not really that interested in that. So like I said, at the beginning, I thought they were saying you could come out with us when we go fishing. And then I was sort of like interested. Oh, but it turns out, no, they weren't saying that. They were just saying, yeah, we can take you on a pleasure cruise. You know, I could end up on a Gilligan's Island on a 5-hour tour and end up stranded on an island somewhere. But yeah, so that was kind of interesting. And after a while, oh, actually, I was talking to the guys. They have these, the boats that I saw. I've seen this type of boat before. They're huge, huge boats. Steel frame, I think, and then wooden structure, like a wooden rib cage, everything made out of wood. And they have these huge structures on each side, kind of like pontoons, I guess. But then these boats also are covered in bright, bright lights. Powerful, powerful lights all the way around, sometimes on these frames on the boat themselves. And I remember asking about these boats in the past, because I've seen them in other countries. It's a very common way of fishing. You can see these boats out on the water at night. You know, there's like these big, bright balls of light out in the middle of the ocean, and it's these boats. And I think in the past I've learned what the lights were for and what they're actually fishing for, but I've forgotten everything. So I asked the guy that I was talking to, like, with this boat, there was one of these boats like right in front of us. I said, okay, this boat here, I'm using Google Translate, what does it catch? What kind of fish do you catch? And he said in English, baby tuna. And then he pointed to some smaller boats and said that they catch full-grown adult tuna. But these big, huge boats with the lights, they catch baby tuna. And I'm a little bit confused about that. Doesn't seem right. I can't imagine it's legal to catch baby tuna. They're highly regulated as far as I can tell, you know, tuna fisheries. So it must be a different kind of fish. But anyway, that's what he said, baby tuna. And then when I rode my scooter away from these huge boats, I walked up and down with my camera and filmed some of the boats and talked about them a little bit. But then the other boats, the smaller ones, they were in a different part of the harbor, and I couldn't get there from where I was. So then I rode my scooter all the way around onto this different harbor area, and the smaller boats were there, and I was trying to figure out how they catch the tuna, because on these boats there was no netting of any kind, which kind of makes sense from what I know about tuna. You can't catch them in a net. It's not that kind of fishing. These, I think tuna, they swim at like 8,000 miles an hour. I mean, they're fast fish. You're not going to catch them in a net, I don't think. And they don't go around in schools of thousands of them where you can just throw out a net and scoop them up. It's not that kind of thing. From what I've seen on TV, you catch tuna with a line, a hook and a line, right? And at first, on all these smaller boats, I didn't see any mechanism at all for catching any kind of fish, let alone tuna. But then as I hung out longer and longer, I eventually spotted coils of fishing line, really thick, strong fishing line, coiled up on all these hooks. So there might be like 10 coils on hooks on each side of the boat. And then it's like, okay, I think that's how they catch the tuna. You know, they actually have these lines. They put bait on the lines, and some of the boats had big bamboo poles, like 20 feet long, these huge bamboo poles, and I think they use those. They put the lines on the poles, dangle them off the boat in different directions, and then put lines in the water, and I think that's how they catch the tuna. And I was hoping to see some tuna. There was actually a fish processing plant right there, but the whole thing was gated and closed off and sealed off. You couldn't go into that building. But I thought maybe I could actually see them unloading tuna from the fish, from the boat, you know, things like that. But there was nothing going on. I think daytime is not the time to be at a fishing harbor. I think they go out at night. Maybe they do all their fishing at night. Maybe they come back at dawn, unload their catch, and then they just hang out all day long, sleep on the boats during the day, and then go out at night again. I don't really know. But anyway, I saw no fish at all. I saw no fishing activity at all. All I could see was the coils of fishing line. And I figured, okay, that's probably how they catch the tuna. Yeah, interesting. I love fishing harbors. You know, I don't really eat fish. I don't like seafood. It's too challenging for me, so I'm not really into lobster and crab and fish and whatnot. It's not my preferred type of food, and I don't go fishing at all. I'm not the guy to sit there with a fishing rod and pass the time that way. And yet, I really love fishing harbors. They're just visually so interesting. Fishing boats, the life on the boat is always quite interesting. So I love wandering around fishing harbors, looking at all the boats. That was a lot of fun. So this whole time that I've been on the road and going to the harbor and checking out all these places, I was still on the main highway, the West Sumatran highway, with all the crazy traffic. And I wasn't sure how much farther I wanted to go on that highway. But I was looking at Google Maps ahead of me, and there was a kind of a peninsula. I don't know if it has a name or not. I don't really see a name for it, but it was like the highway kind of cut away from the coast and goes inland and then down before it rejoins the coast. But at that point, with this big peninsula, a network of small roads zip off. And that's what I had my eye on. So it was about 8 kilometers from the port to the turnoff onto this smaller road. And it looked like there was quite a distance I could go. So I have a plan in my mind for one day doing the entire area on the small road. And that would be a little bit of a journey. But just to scout it out, I picked out a place that was about 16 kilometers away on this peninsula, down a small road, and then you turn onto another small road. And there were things like, I saw some coffee shops, there's some beaches, some coastal areas, and there's something called the Glamping Teluk Sira Resort, and another harbor, and a big port. And I thought, okay, that will be my destination for the day. I'll continue on from the port I was at, the fishing port, another 16 kilometers onto this peninsula, which looked quite remote and quite beautiful. And I'll check that area out, and that'll be the end of my day. So that's what I ended up doing. And that was a really wise decision because it was so nice to get off the highway. Once I turned onto this smaller road, so nice, just zooming along on the scooter, winding road, steep, couple of points there, so steep, it was unbelievable. I kept thinking about, had I tried to do something like this on a bicycle, it'd be insane. There's just no way. There's one spot in particular, after I went in all the way to the end and was on my way out again, I got to this really steep section and I was going down. And while I was there just happened to be a lot of trucks going up and down on this really steep section. It turns out at the very end of the road, there was a power plant. And I think it was a coal generating station. They burn coal there to produce electricity. And all these trucks, huge trucks, were carrying loads of coal. And when these trucks got to the hill, that they had to climb, I think there's like, I don't know how many gears these trucks have, but they can go all the way down into first gear, but I don't think even first gear would not get them up that hill. They must have had a sub first gear, like way down, like a powerful gear, because their engines were like wide open and they were just like barely moving, just engine full out and just trying. It was like switchbacking, and they were crazy steep. I sat there for a while with my GoPro and I filmed some of it because I just thought that was so interesting. But yeah, they needed a lot of power to get those trucks up that hill, and then coming down again was very, very dangerous for them. But anyway, beautiful ride on my scooter. My scooter struggled, to get up those hills as well, but I got up there. I went all the way to the end, to the power plant, and it was another like industrial shipping port area. And this one had a lot of high security gates and everything. So a dummy like me on a scooter, I couldn't just go in there and look around. So I got to the very end of the road and I just turned around and came back. And then I went to, after that, on my way back, that's when I went down to these little villages and the beach area. And I stumbled across a place called Kupi Batigo Taluk Buo. It's like when I was on the small road, the small winding hilly road, there was like another road going down to the ocean, and there was like a series of wooden signs. And it looked so familiar to me. It kind of jumped out at me because, to be honest, pretty much everything in Sumatra looks foreign to me. It just doesn't match my cultural world in any way because it's all part of the Indonesian Sumatran culture. And there is a lot of tourism here, but all the tourism that I see is local tourism. So even the tourist sites, like when I went to Sweetwater Beach, all these, I go to the big beaches and things, everything there just looks unfamiliar. Like they're not designed to appeal to a Westerner like me. Like even the places where you get food and drinks, how you sit, where you sit, the style of everything, the signage, the music playing, how everything is organized, it all feels, it's like it's designed for other people who have other preferences. And then there I am on this little road, and I was like, what the heck? Because there was this post, and it had all these wooden, like plain wooden slats with hand painted lettering on it, like with arrows, and it was all written in English. And it was such a familiar sight to me. It was like, that I know, like that was designed for me. It's like something you would see all over Thailand, for example, all over tourist areas of the Philippines. It was like a tourism destination that had been designed to appeal to Westerners. And it said in English, I forget now, things like snorkeling, campfire, sunset viewing, paradise, beautiful, just like all these words in English with an arrow, pointing in this direction. And it just looked like something I'd seen a million times in my life, but in other countries. I'd never seen anything like that in Sumatra. So it kind of surprised me. I was like, whoa, hey, look at this. It's like a little beach resort from the Philippines, designed for backpackers kind of thing. So, of course, I went down there on my scooter, and I found this lovely little place. And almost everything about it, as I said, was familiar to me. It was like, oh, I know this place. This is designed to appeal to me. And it had a little coffee shop, where you could get some food and some iced coffee and some iced drinks. At first I thought it was going to be the typical Indonesian thing where everything was closed, because everywhere I go, everything was closed. And when I went down to this place, I saw all these buildings and things and everything, and the signs promised all these activities and all these things. But when I looked around, I didn't see any evidence of any of that actually happening. So I just assumed everything was closed. But a young guy, Indonesian guy, came up to me and he spoke English quite well. And he said his name was Captain. So you just call him the Captain. And I'm chatting with him and I'm trying to get some sense from him. Like, okay, what is this place? Like, is this all one business? Am I at a beach resort? Like, what's here? Like, do you have rooms where you can stay? You have a restaurant? Or like, what exactly is this place? And is this all connected or is it all separate? Couldn't really figure it out. But then I'm chatting with him, and then he said to me, he's like, oh, would you like a drink? Would you like a hot or cold drink? And I said, well, now that you mention it, yes, I do. I would like a drink. And then he went over to the booth which I thought was closed, but I guess he's running the whole place, the captain. Then he went behind the booth and gave me a menu and said, what would you like? So I ordered a vanilla shake, an iced coffee, and a bottle of ice cold water. And again, that struck me as also very Western oriented, because most of the time when I try to get a cold drink in Sumatra, quite often it's not cold at all. Even when it comes out of a cooler, for whatever reason, the local people are not into ice cold drinks. And then I think they just dial it back. Like, even though it's a refrigerator, they don't set it to freezing cold. They set it at some sort of medium temperature. So I'm always disappointed. I want a cold bottle of water, and could I have a cold bottle of water? And then you get, it's like room temperature, But this place, I saw a cooler there, and after I ordered my vanilla shake and coffee, I remembered how dehydrated I am here all the time, because I don't drink enough during the day when I'm on my scooter trips. So I thought, okay, I should drink more. So I asked him for a bottle of water as well. He pulled it out of the fridge and handed it to me, and I grabbed it and was like, it's so cold. And then I popped it open, and it was just like, like nectar of the gods, this ice cold water pouring down my throat. It's like, yes. It's like this place was built for me, I was so happy. Cold water. Yeah, that was cool. I think that's the reason I don't drink enough, because I can't drink lukewarm, like room temperature water. I just like, I drink a little bit and I swallow it, and that's all that goes down. But you give me a bottle of cold water, I upend it and the whole thing goes down just like that. I just love cold and hot. I need extremes when it comes to my drinks. And this place seemed to know that. This place understood me. So anyway, I hung out there for a while. They had some nice seating. I sat there in the shade, palm trees everywhere. There was a beach, and enjoyed my vanilla shake, my iced coffee, my cold water. Then I went walking along one side. It was kind of a rocky shore, and I took my GoPro and filmed a little bit and chatted about this and that. And then I turned around and went in the other direction, and then there was more of a sandy beach and a local village. And the beach was covered in small fishing boats and palm trees still standing or falling over. And yeah, very beautiful, very... I sent some pictures to a friend of mine online yesterday, just some of the scenery there. And then he wrote back and said it was very Pirates of the Caribbean, because I was taking pictures of boats, and there were some huge old boats that had been abandoned and just falling apart, and you could still see the ribs, of the wooden frame holding the boat together. Everything else had fallen away. Basically shipwrecks. They all look like shipwrecks. And so I think that made him think of Pirates of the Caribbean. So yeah, I hung out there for quite a while, took a bunch of pictures as I walked along, shot some video, and the captain, he kept offering me all kinds of activities. He really wanted me to stay there or come back, talking about campfires on the beach and sunset viewing and snorkeling and all these things. But I had to break his heart and I have a room in Padang. And so I'm just here to visit, and I'm going to get back on my scooter and go back. But yeah, I stayed there for, a while, enjoying the scenery. And then I turned around and rode my scooter all the way back. I stopped at one place. On my way out, I spotted these, they're like snack shops. They have them on the big highways here, where people can pull in. They have big parking lots, and then they have a vast array of like banana chips and other snacks, chips and snacks and nuts and things like that. And you can go in there and buy all these snacks to bring on your trip, food for the road sort of thing. And I pulled into one of those places. That's where I ended the video for the day, just having some banana chips. I still have I've almost done the whole bag. I've got the leftovers here still. And that was where I ended the video officially. And then from that point on, I shot a time lapse. So I did shoot a GoPro time warp of the journey all the way from the banana place, all the way along the coast back to here. And I haven't seen that video yet, but I'm hoping it'll be quite interesting because there was a tremendous amount of variety and a lot of twisting and turning and up and down and roads and trucks and crazy traffic and bridges and rivers. And yeah, I'm hoping that time warp will be interesting. And then I got back here, spent a long time copying all the video files because I had video from this GoPro, video from the other GoPro, video from my phone, and audio from the GoPro, audio from the internal microphone. And I create a folder structure to keep all of this. I label it by the date and the place and the type of camera, and I copy all the video files into each folder. Because it's going to take me a long time to finally get around to editing that video from the day. So I need it well organized. Otherwise, yeah, there's no way I'll be able to keep track of everything if I don't keep it organized. And then I had dinner, and that was the end of my day. Went to bed. Yeah, a little bit late last night. I just couldn't sleep for some reason. Every time I tried to go to sleep, I just couldn't do it. And I just kept turning the light back on and kept doing things. And so I'm a little bit tired this morning. I didn't get the full night of sleep that I was hoping for or that I needed. Yeah, these days it's very rare to wake up in the morning feeling good. Yesterday, I don't know what happened, but I slept so well that night. That was before I went to immigration. And I just woke up in the morning and I was just like, whoa, man, I feel good today. I felt normal, put it that way. I felt like my old self. Just early in the morning, I wake up, body feels good, my brain feels fresh, I'm aware, I'm sharp. I could just feel it. It was like, man, I feel good. And then I just sailed through the day so easily. This morning, I'm back to being exhausted. This is what I say yesterday was my old self, but I think that is my pre-YouTube self. Like pre-YouTube, that's how I would feel when I woke up in the morning. Just, good day. I feel good. I feel rested. But ever since I joined the world of YouTube, I think I'm just exhausted all the time. And this is how I wake up in the morning. And I'm just tired. Just always, always tired. Yeah, I don't know why. I mean, I go to bed pretty early sometimes and I sleep. I stay in bed for a long time, and yet I never have that sense of, oh, yeah, I feel good this morning. I just basically, my eyes open in the morning and I'm just like, what's going on, and I just sort of stumble around, and yeah, I'm not as sharp as I used to be. I blame it all on YouTube. I blame it all on content creation, like these fishermen told me about. But yeah, for behind the scenes, I think I will end my thoughts there. I could move on into pop culture thoughts, some TV shows that I've been watching, things like that, news story, podcasts, but I don't think I have the energy for that this morning. Though the big story, of course, that hit the news yesterday, and I got a bunch of emails from people who follow me on Planet Doug. I got a couple of messages and emails saying surfers, like Australian surfers, 4 of them have gone missing. And since when I came here originally on my flight back to Sumatra, I met up with all these Australian surfer dudes at the airport. So that's how my trip began. And then now these surfers went missing, and people were writing to me and saying, oh, I wonder if these were the guys that you met, Turns out, though, no, they aren't, because they're in a completely different part of Sumatra. Here, I'm at Padang, Mentawai Islands is where they go surfing. The 4 Australians that went missing, they were surfing in the far north, off the coast from Banda Aceh, the Banyak Islands there that they went to. And I haven't done a deep dive into the stories or anything, but I have seen a few articles, and there's that very famous or very popular video clip right now, the moment that they were discovered. because all four of them were found. And there's a little video clip of the moment when this boat, rescue boat, spotted three of them, like three of the Australians and one Indonesian, I think. And they were sitting on their surfboards and just bobbing up and down in the ocean, you know, waiting to be rescued, basically. And these people have been out there for like 36, 37 hours because their boat capsized and sank during a storm. I guess they were out there in a storm, and then a big wave hit the boat during the storm, and it flipped over, and they all got thrown into the water, and I guess the boat sank. And then they basically climbed onto their surfboards and sat on their surfboards waiting to be rescued. And they were out there for, a day and a half, you know, night, day, another night, who knows. Yeah, crazy story. But yeah, they were found. All four of them were found. But I guess there were 4 Australians and 3 Indonesians on that boat. The 4 Australians are fine. They continued with their surfing holiday. You know, they're fine. So they just continued on to where they planned to stay, you know, the resort where they were going to stay, and they're going to complete their surfing holiday. And then 2 Indonesians so far were also rescued, but one of them, I believe, is still missing. The last I checked, maybe that person's been found by now, but apparently like one Indonesian crew member from the boat is still missing. But yeah, so that's the one big story that's going on right now. One thing made me laugh, though. I was scouring, you know, some of the articles online, and I think there was like a video clip of one of the Australian, it might even have been Elliot. The whole thing revolves around a guy named Elliot, Australian surfer, because it was his 30th birthday. And his family and friends all got together, I guess, to plan or, you know, put together this surfing holiday for him to celebrate his 30th birthday. And he was the guy, he was on the boat that capsized. So Elliot, who was the star of the whole event, he was the guest of honor, basically, because it was his 30th birthday. He was one of the ones whose boat capsized and had to be rescued. But I think there's a video clip of him being interviewed about his experiences. It might have been him, it might have been one of the other guys. But I just laughed when I watched the interview because he talked like such a surfer. It was just, I don't know, I couldn't understand a word he said, to be honest. There was so much slang in it. I mean, there's a very famous YouTube clip, I think, where from years ago, they interviewed a surfer about something on the beach. And then the surfer just spoke like such a typical surfer, like, made no sense at all, just talking almost gibberish about, you know, I was in the wave, man, and then zoom, and then it was like, whoa, and then it went, ho, and then we went zoom, you know. It's like all these sound effects and things about surfing, you know, because that's a stereotypical image of a surfer, right? And then when they interviewed this guy who was rescued, he spoke exactly like that, describing, let's put it this way, he wasn't exactly articulate. When, you know, it's like, oh, what was it like to be lost in the ocean and be rescued? And it wasn't exactly an articulate, thoughtful reply full of, you know, precise detail. He was just like a surfer. It's like, oh man, yeah, it was like zoom, and then I was like, whoa, and then it was like, reminds me of the turtles from Finding Nemo, you know, because the turtles, the tortoises, were like surfer dudes. That was the character of the turtles, you know. It was like, it sounded exactly like them. That was pretty funny. But anyway, they were found. I'm hoping to hear more about their story because, I'm very, very detail oriented, and nothing drives me crazier than seeing a big news story about like a disaster or a boat that capsizes, and then they just give you the bare minimum of facts. And I want to know, okay, exactly what happened. Like, okay, the article might say the boat sank, but I'm like, well, how exactly? Like, did, you know, what? I need all the details. It clearly had a motor on this boat, and like, did the motor stop working in the storm? Were they drifting? Did they, you know, did a wave hit it and they capsized? Like, when it capsized, Was anybody inside the boat? You know, did they have to fight through the windows of the boat to get out, or were they all on deck? And they were all floating on their surfboards. And as far as I know how people travel with surfboards, they put them inside bags, right? Very protected. They have to take care of them. They're inside cushioned bags. And for all I know, they were strapped into place on the boat to keep them safe. So like, why didn't the surfboards sink with the boat? How did they end up in the water with their surfboards? Because their surfboards basically saved their lives. They were able to sit on them and float on the surfboards the entire time. So I want to know, how did that happen? Like, did they get their surfboards out and get them ready because they were worried that the boat might capsize, it might sink? Did they do that in advance? And me being me, I'm thinking, when they went into the water, did they make an effort to save their valuables? You know, they're there in Indonesia, in a foreign country on a surfing holiday, so there are very important things to them, you know, their passport, bank cards, smartphones, things like that, which you would generally keep in a small knapsack, or, you know, the bag that you keep safe all the time. So when they went in the water, did they make an effort to keep those? So when they're in the water, because they continued their surfing holiday, but would they even be able to do that if they don't have their passports anymore? I mean, they would have lost all their other luggage. It would still be on the boat. It would have sunk. But did they manage to save passports and money and bank cards and credit cards? You know what I mean? I think about these things because, yeah, they're important. You wouldn't think so. I mean, you would think, oh, you know, it's your life is the most important thing. And there's like, oh, you know, they were rescued and plucked out of the ocean and they're still alive. That's the most important thing. Well, yeah, but once you get past that point, you're still in Indonesia, and if you don't have your passport and all that kind of stuff, well, life's going to be really complicated. So it'd be really nice to be rescued and to still have your passport with you. Things like that, you know, still have money, bank cards, stuff like that. So that would be really nice to still have that. And I wonder, did they think about that while they're out there in the storm and the boat is rocking? And did they get together and think, man, we better get our surfboards out and make sure we have our passport with us, because I think the boat's going to sink, you know, exactly like point by point by point. I really want the whole story. And then once they're in the water, what did they talk about? How did they, you know, what was the weather like? Were they on the surfboards during the height of the storm? And then how did they not get separated? Like, did they hold on to each other's surfboards to stay together as a group until the storm went away? You know, I want all these details, but I'll probably never ever get them unless they write a book about their experience or something. All right, that is it. I think I'm going to start the rest of my day. I don't have any plans to go out on the scooter today, like on a big trip. I'm pretty tired from yesterday. And yeah, I don't think I'll be doing anything like that. It's going to be a bit of I'm going to stay in town. I might go to a couple of places. There's a museum here I'd like to visit. You know, there's a famous mosque or two, famous buildings, you know, that I wouldn't mind visiting. So I may do that this afternoon, or maybe not. I think I might have a very low-key day today, where my hostel is located. It's quite near the ocean. I think I may just hang out in this neighborhood all day, do some video editing, things like that. And then maybe in the afternoon, maybe I can do a walk along the ocean, which is what people do here as the sun is setting. Yeah, I can just walk down to the ocean area there, have a coconut, sip some coconut milk fresh from the coconut. All the things you're supposed to do down at the beach. We'll see. So that's it for this morning. I'll be shutting down behind the scenes for today, and I'll talk to you in the next video.